Hello and welcome to another my Married to Autism video channel. It comes up a lot in conversation where people sort of talk about how can they change their partner. And I remember in the early days going to support groups and meeting people who'd been in their relationships for quite a few years. And they were like, you can't change them. And I remember thinking, no, that can't be true. There must be a way, fighting it. And eventually you come to a point where you have what they call radical acceptance, and you really realize you can't change them. You're picking battles you can't win, and you're exhausting yourself, and you really need to stop doing that. And so then you get to a point where you realise, if I can't change them and my life's not going to be better because of them, then I really have to get to a point where I'm making my life better regardless of them. And as hard as it is to get to that point, because you think you're going to get in a marriage with a person who's reciprocating and meeting your needs, and it's team effort, And you kind of get in these relationships and it's not so much that. A whole lot of things never get resolved, and it's a whole lot of juggling and sorting and dealing and making it that their life is fairly decent, as well as your children and the house and the pets and the shopping and the food and the bills, and it's hectic. And you end up neglecting yourself because you're trying to look after so much else. So many other things anyway. And you eventually get to a point where you're worn out, tired, exhausted, and you're thinking, what have I done with my life? And maybe your life feels a little bit wasted. So where am I going with this? Self-care, so important, and doing things that you want to do. So I have a bucket list. And these are just things that I wrote down that I've always wanted to do. And some of them might be things that I do with him, and some of them are things that I do without him. And the main thing is trying to do as many of these things as I can, regardless of the situation with him and me, because I want to at least have had a life where I did stuff, where it wasn't wasted, where I had adventures and I had fond memories and good times, and regardless of how sort of distant and removed he is, I'm still looking after myself physically and mentally. So I'll just give you some of the things that are on the list as examples. So I'd always wanted to swim in a hot spring, where the hot water comes out of the ground. Anyway, he and I did that with the children, so I got to tick that off. And that was, let me rephrase. He had never known I wanted to do that. I'd never said I wanted to do that. And we're just travelling around and we get to this stream and he dips his toe in and says the water's warm, and I thought he was kidding. And I get in and it actually is warm. So, that's a nice sort of fond memory. I'd always wanted to fly in a helicopter. Again, I never mentioned this to him, but we were on a holiday down, what is it called? Polo Bay? Where you go down Great Ocean Road. Anyway, we're just randomly driving along and he hasn't told any of us where we're going. And we're suddenly driving towards this sort of flat area and I see some helicopters in the distance and I'm like, no way. This can't be happening. I'm so excited. Anyway, we get in the helicopter and we fly over the 12 Apostles. And super, super exciting. Great memory. So exciting. And I wasn't even scared, to be honest. I thought I might be, but it was just really fun. And again, he hadn't known that. He doesn't know this list. I don't think he would even look at it if I left it on a coffee table. He's not that interested in, anything that I've got to say or do necessarily. But some other things that I'd always wanted to do is go hiking in the wilderness. And I did that with my bestie and not with him. And that's just because she had just randomly said, do you want to? Again, she didn't know this was my bucket list. I'm just glad we did it. I'd always wanted to ride on a motorbike. I've done that a few times. My dad had a motorbike when I was growing up. I'd always wanted to ride in a dune buggy or quad bike. I've done that. I've been rally car driving. That was very scary. Another thing I always wanted to do was stay in an expensive hotel. We did that. Maybe only one thing you ever do once, but we've done that. One of my other bucket lists that I'm yet to do is fly business class at least once in my life. We're saving up for that, which also reminds me another thing I'd wanted to do was get some really nice glam photos made where they do your makeup and Photoshop away all your imperfections and you get to feel fabulous at least once in your life. So I did that as well. I saved up for that, and when I suggested to him that we do it together, he put in half, which was pretty cool. And things like ride a jet ski. We went on a holiday to Malaysia because some people we knew were having a wedding, and we went there and we got to ride on a jet ski. And again, that was super exciting. So look, I'm not a daredevil, and it kind of sounds like I am. I'm really very much like terra firma. The idea of climbing rocks or climbing mountains, going up Mount Everest, going deep sea diving, cringe. I only like to do things that are relatively safe, although helicopters and motorbikes and jet skis are not necessarily, but that's about as dangerous as I'd get. I'm not one for crazy stuff. I suppose they're more like pampering and special, feeling special kind of stuff, like staying in chalets or spa retreats. I love nature walks and things like that. So that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really think it's important that you commit to paper somewhere some of the things that you'd really like to achieve and tick off the ones that you had. Like, I had already been on motorbikes and I wrote it on my list anyway because I wanted to still reference the things that I have done. And like even going horseback riding, I want to be able to say, yep, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. Tick off as many things. So commit some things to paper, some things that will bring you joy if you do them and if you get them done. And then find ways to get them done. Find ways to look after yourself and do things that are going to bring you joy, whether your partner joins you or not. Maybe they're things you can do by yourself, with your children, with your friends or family. But just make that list and try very, very hard to get a few of the things done so that you can look after yourself and put yourself first every now and then. Anyway, that's my small short video of advice today. Hopefully again you found it somewhat interesting and helpful. Let me know if you do this, if you have done this. Have I inspired you, or inspirated as I like to say, because that person on Big Brother used to say it. Anyway, take care and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really do appreciate it.